Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup. Stage 3, Week 1 preview. Right, this is the second time of recording this video because I recorded the original version of this before Blizzard released the details for Stage 3. So, we now know the map pool and the patch that Stage 3 will be played on. It will be played on patch 1.37, which is the new McCree patch. We don't know what new McCree might do to the meta. It might do nothing. It might do loads. But we don't know. So, let's look at our Week 1 fixtures. And let's see how that might have an effect on what we think might happen here. So, Stage 3 Week 1 will start on Friday, June the 7th at midnight BST. All these times will be in British summertime. Add an hour if you're in Europe. Elsewhere, there are converters online. The first game at midnight will be San Francisco Shurk taking on the Atlanta Reign. Now, I don't see past Shurk for this one. In any meta, I don't see past Shurk for this one. Shurk are arguably the best team in the league right now. I think Stage 2 has given us an idea of that. And, yeah, don't see many people beating Shurk right now. At 1:45 AM in BST, we have the Florida Mayhem taking on the Seoul Dynasty. A DPS heavy meta, actually, or a McCree meta, would benefit Florida. Sire player on McCree. I still don't think we're out of goats though. Even with a McCree having the buffs he's got. McCree is a notoriously interesting hero to balance because he can be terribly OP or rubbish, depending on how they balance him. I would go for Seoul to win this one over Florida, but a McCree meta could change things for Florida drastically. Up next we have the Guangzhou Charge taking on the Chengdu Hunters at 3:30. Both of these teams don't really care what meta they're in. Chengdu will play whatever they're going to play, and Guangzhou Charge can be good in both the DPS or GOATS meta. But Guangzhou have looked very, very inconsistent recently. They had a very poor Stage 2, so I would go for Chengdu Hunters to win this one. Again, we're going into a new stage though, and there's been a big break between Stage 2 and 3, so we could see some resurgence from certain teams. And at 5:15 we have the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Shanghai Dragons. The Valiant have made quite a few roster changes between stages. McGravy has come in, Fact Fiction has come in, Fate has gone out. So I think Valiant will go into a transition now. Shanghai were on the up last stage. They did very well in the stage playoffs. One of only two teams to take a map off of the San Francisco Shock, so I would expect Shanghai to do fairly well. And I would expect them to beat the Valiant. On Saturday, June the 8th at midnight, we have the Paris Eternal taking on the Toronto Defiant. This one's a really weird one to call because both teams have shown great inconsistency. But I think Paris are a little bit below Toronto right now, so I would go for Toronto to win that one. And to be quite honest, it doesn't really matter what meta you win. I think these teams are about where they would be. At 1:45, we have the Boston Uprising taking on the London Spitfire. Now, this is a different ballgame because London arguably will do better in a DPS heavy meta. We would likely see Birdring on McCree, and it depends how, if we get a McCree meta, it would form. Because would you just swap out, say, one of the tanks for a McCree? Remember, Diva's getting nerfed. Or would you go to 2-2-2? I don't know. If you go to 2-2-2, then you definitely say Birdwing will be playing McCree because they'll drop the Brigitte, because pros won't play Brigitte unless it's a three support meta. Maybe you see 3 supports and they drop the Diva or the Zarya. But if you're playing Rhine, then you're generally going to play the Zarya. So, I don't know, it's a difficult one to call. Either way, I would expect London to get the win over Boston, but it could be closer if we're still in GOATS. At 3:30, we have the Houston Outlaws taking on the New York Excelsior. My goodness. A McCree meta for Houston Outlaws? That would be the best thing they could ever ask for right now. apart from perhaps a Widow meta. I still don't see them beating the New York Excelsior. I don't see Houston beating anyone at the moment with their issues. There is a video on that on the channel. But a DPS meta would be beneficial to Houston right now, especially with the likes of Linkser. We know how good Linkser is, and we've seen him carry on Widow this season. But he only gets on Widow very, very rarely, and he's got a very good McCree in him, but it's so heavily meta dependent, and I am not confident that we're coming out of Goats yet. And it will be a couple of weeks before we actually concrete know whether this McCree is OP or not. At 5:15, it is the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Dallas Fuel. So this is one of the closest games of the week. Which way will it go? I don't know. This is a really difficult one. Really difficult to call. It could go either way. I would go for Dallas Fuel. I don't know why. I would just go for Dallas Fuel. Again, it's not really... I don't think these two teams are typically meta dependent. As long as we don't see AKM on Genji, then you'll be fine. Although, Note might struggle a bit more with his D.Va, but I still think D.Va will be in the meta. Defense Matrix, you'd have to nerf it into something completely unrecognisable for it not to be meta, basically. At 8 PM on Saturday, we have the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. Hangzhou had a good stage last stage, and they tore apart the Spitfire in the playoffs. Philadelphia are still looking as inconsistent as ever. Obviously, if this McCree is OP and we go into a McCree meta, Philadelphia Fusion I would expect to have a resurgence with Carpe on McCree, but we don't know. And if it's still Goats, then I would expect the Spark to outdo the Fusion here. At 9:45, we have the Vancouver Titans taking on the Atlanta Reign. Again, Vancouver, I don't see past them for this, although they are bouncing back off their first loss in the Overwatch League in the Stage 2 final against the San Francisco Shock. How they will be mentally after that is another question, because obviously we saw Runaway lose for the first time a month and a half back-ish, and they didn't bounce back from that. They then lost their playoff game, so mentally this might have a major effect on the Vancouver Titans, but their game later in the week is much harder than against Atlanta Reign. If we go into a McCree meta, I really don't think it makes a difference to Vancouver. They've got great players all round that can play whatever they need to play. At 11:30, we have the Seoul Dynasty taking on the Guangzhou Charge. I should expect Seoul to win this one, but Seoul are terribly inconsistent, and Guangzhou could pull off a bit of a shock here. Again, not really two meta-dependent teams. They could play whatever. They've got the players to do it. They just need to find a bit of consistency and traction in their games. On Sunday at 1:15 AM, we have the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Chengdu Hunters. So, Chengdu don't care. They really don't. They will play what they want to play, and you will sort them out, or you won't sort them out. That's the Chengdu Hunters way, so it doesn't matter. You could give McCree, I don't know, a fire rate that's similar to Tracer. Wouldn't matter. Chengdu will play whatever they're going to play. Valiant, however, again, we touched on this earlier. In a transition, I would expect Chengdu to get the win here, just because Valiant, I think, will be slightly unstable in this stage because of the additions. Again, I don't know. Valiant were getting better at in Stage 2, and then they decide to really change it up, which I think really puts their season playoffs at risk. They'll have to hit the ground running, big time. Again, I think they'd have to get 2 wins, really, in Week 1 if they want to really hit the ground running. At 8 PM on Sunday, we have the game of the week, the newly crowned game of the week from the Overwatch League. New York Excelsior taking on the London Spitfire. Now, there's like these groups in the league at the moment. I think we can all agree that the top group is the San Francisco Shock and Vancouver Titans, and I think the Vancouver Titans proved in the stage playoffs, the last stage, that New York Excelsior are slightly below those two teams right now. London got absolutely torn apart by the Spark in the playoffs. Possibly some of the worst play I've ever seen London produce. So these two, this is a big game to know where these teams are, regardless of meta. Obviously, London will give it a good go, especially if they get to play McCree. If we do see a McCree meta, we might see Pine come back. I think we all know about Pine's McCree. But this is a big one. This, I think, will tell you which is the third best team in the league. I would go down for New York Excelsior right now, but we don't know. All kind of sometimes these games come down to what happens on the day. London are capable of beating New York Excelsior, and likewise. It should be a good match. At 9:45, we have the Paris Eternal taking on the Boston Uprising. Again, Paris are terribly inconsistent. Boston, they are a bit up and down this season, but I think they've got enough to see off the Paris Eternal. The only thing we might be surprised about is if we do see a lot of McCree, Soon might be able to outdo Colour Hex. But Soon on Zarya? Nah. Don't see him winning it. At 11:30, we have the Washington Justice taking on the Dallas Fuel. I will go for Dallas Fuel every day of the week in this matchup. Regardless of meta, really. Dallas are the better team right now. I think we can all agree with that. Washington, they're making some good additions, but there's a lot of building work to do with that team. And the last game of the week is at 1:15 in the morning on Monday. That'll be the Vancouver Titans taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators. One of Vancouver's much tougher games of the season, in the regular season anyway. A big test for the Gladiators to see where they are. But if we're GOATs, does anyone put it past Titans? I don't think so. If we're anything else, does anyone put it past Titans? I don't think so either. I think Titans will win against the Gladiators, but Gladiators could make this incredibly close. And it's one of those games where you might just see an upset. You might just see it. And sometimes, as I say, it can come down to what happens on the day. So, those are your fixtures for week 1. Again, there will be a lot of speculation around new McCree. There will be a lot of speculation about whether we will see a GOAT or not. I think we will still see GOATs. And perhaps some teams might experiment with new McCree, but then go back to GOATs if it doesn't work. That's the most likely thing. Any team that's going to experiment with something apart from Chengdu will probably fall back to GOATs if it doesn't work, because that is the established meta. The same as if you go back, say, a year, if they tried something new and it didn't work, they'd fall back to Dive, because that was the most established and well-practiced meta of the time. That is no more, because we are now in GOATs, and the safe thing to do for most of these teams would be to drop back to something they know they have played for almost a year now, and they know inside and out, and that would be GOATs. But if we do see a meta shift, oh boy, it's going to be an interesting 2 stages coming up. But I'm going to leave it here. Will McCree break things? I don't know. All I know is, I think we're in for an interesting stage, regardless of what meta we see. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.